Welcome to Southern Fried Baseball, brought to you by College Baseball Central, bringing you 90 feet closer to the greatest show on dirt. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back, college baseball fans. We're back here for week 2. Nick and Jake in our new official time slot that we're going to be rolling with here going forward. Thursdays, 7-6 Central. Nick, we got another great weekend of college baseball. We made it through those midweeks.
Yeah, made it through the midweeks. So did pretty much every SEC team. I believe it was Kentucky and Missouri were the only ones to go down. But besides that, yeah, it was a good outside the SEC. There were a bunch of great midweek games. So it's always fun, especially this time of year. Can't turn the TV off of college baseball, and gotta love it.
Yeah, we do have a fun one tonight. The Minnesota Golden Gophers are taking on the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah.
But as far as SEC goes, yeah, we had a few scares, but nothing really that shocked us too much.
No, I forgot to mention Auburn too. That's another one. That's another red flag. It's just I don't know what's going on with this Auburn offense. Getting shut out. I mean, Cincinnati's a good team. Don't get me wrong, but to get shut out again, we mentioned this on the show. I believe it was Monday about just I don't know why this offense isn't clicking. Getting shut out in the midweek is never great. So that's a tough one. And then another concern, you're wearing the hat. The Tide, 2 one-run wins against Samford, who's always good, but then Alabama State. That's a tough one to swallow there. But yeah, I mean they're 4-1, but it's just there's some things that just aren't clicking early in the season yet. Obviously, there's ton of baseball left. But yeah, it was a great week for the SEC.
Yeah, that's a good segue into our first team that we're going to be talking about, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They welcome the Rhode Island Rams. Obviously, Rhode Island is not kind of the baseball power as Pear projects it to be a 77% of a sweep. In his rankings, Alabama's down at 74, Rhode Island's at 266. I think the big story for me is what's Tyler Fay going to do Friday night?
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of the biggest thing for me here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like to see Tyler Fay have a much better outing. Zane Adams, like we mentioned last week, Zane Adams was good. Miles Upchurch, great for a freshman making his first start. So that was good to see. But yeah, most of my questions are Tyler Fay, and then when is this offense going to click? Because their offense is way too talented. There's way too many good athletes, good hitters on this offense for us at some point not to come alive.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing for me is you kind of just felt like they were waiting. We know LeBron's – oh, sorry, a little bit too early there. We know LeBron's going to hit the ball. He did have, a couple of cheap home runs. But, again, what are they going to get outside of it? We haven't seen really Brady Neal at all as he's been kind of on the bench, Torres. Mm-hmm. But I think for me it really comes back to pitching. As we kind of go through some of these matrices and some of these teams have just outrageous numbers, I think for me, the one that you want to see is pitching. I know that Tennessee putting up 100 runs is great, but what do you want to see pitching wise? And I think Zane Adams has got to either prove that he's a Friday night guy, or Riley Quick's got to, or Tyler Fay's got to prove that he's going to even stay in the rotation at all. Because I mean, this is a deep, deep staff. They did a lot in the portal to address the staff. Really just kind of seeing it from there. But I don't really know what to think about this Alabama team. I thought they'd kind of figured it out after their Saturday and Sunday against Washington State. And again, it's midweek, so we shouldn't read too much into it, but you should blow out Alabama State regardless of what lineup you have running in.
Yeah, or at least score. I mean, even if it's one of those weird ones where it's if it's like 9-8 or something with this offense, that should happen, especially against midweek starters from Alabama State too. So yeah, there's a lot of improvement to be done by the Tide.
Yeah, again, this is another one where I think we'll probably they've ran out of gas, I think, the last 2 years. So you don't know if they're maybe really, really slow with their ramp ups, if they're kind of preaching, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But again, I'd like to see them run roll Rhode Island this weekend. I know that's kind of arrogant to say, but I think that they got to come out and kind of prove a run roll, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Yeah, it's just one of those things. You need to take care of business like most of the other SEC teams are doing, even the ones that we didn't think coming into the year were as talented as Alabama. So you'd like to see them kind of get on that level where it's like, okay, baseball season's here. We need to turn it on.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to a team that, when I was pulling up the pair ratings, has probably the toughest weekend. The Auburn Tigers, they have Kansas State. I know they have Florida State on Saturday. And then I know we have the graphics. But
yeah, Louisville.
They're not favored in that Florida State game. Let's start with Kansas State, as I know they're a little bit riding high. What do you think Auburn needs to do on Friday night against this Kansas State team?
Score runs because Kansas State's going to. I believe if they hit anything like they did in their opening weekend, Auburn's going to need to score runs. And like I mentioned it off the get go, Youngstown State is not that type of competition that should have held them down for 2 of the 3 games. Especially looking at what Oregon is doing to them right now. I think last I saw, Oregon was beating them 13-1, and that's a big kind of stark difference from what opening game was for Auburn when they played them. So yeah, it is for me. It's runs because Kansas State's going to score. Kansas State pitching staff is also they were good last week, but I don't expect them to be like top 20% of the nation good. So Auburn needs to come out and absolutely put up some runs, and then basically for this pitching staff to stay hot. The pitching staff was not an issue last week at all. We saw Jake Marciano look great, the transfer from Virginia Tech, who is sophomore now transferred in. So it's as long as the pitching staff, if they can keep doing what they're doing, I just expect this Auburn offense we talked about it as possibly the best offense in the conference coming into the season, or at least one of the top 2 or 3. They just haven't shown it yet outside of one game. So yeah, that's a big step, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, sorry if I'm on my phone. It looks like I wasn't listening. Chris Rimber is out with a high ankle sprain, out for a few weeks. So Auburn's really got to get production from somebody like him. You mentioned the pitching staff. I'll say this about Kansas State and Arlington. They always come out against somebody and beat somebody that they should have. They shouldn't. Like they beat Arkansas last year, but then lost on Sunday. Yeah. So it kind of is what Kansas State you're going to get. For me, it's the pitching. Because the lineup, you have to feel like the lineup's eventually going to figure it out. Like they're not going to get 2 runs on Youngstown State every single time in the SEC. The flip side is the pitching isn't going to hold them as scoreless as they did in the, the bullpen. I think is another one where you don't really want to tax it. Moving on to Saturday, as it pops up here, Florida State. This is a legit one for them. This is a big kind of measuring stick game for them. It really has, in my opinion, kind of lost its luster early in the season just because of how the start was Auburn. This was projected to be the highest RPI game for both these teams, which, again, Auburn's probably going to figure it out. But I actually think Florida State's going to beat Auburn. I think that it kind of exposes Auburn a little bit here.
Yeah, and I'm interested in also seeing how Auburn, what they do with their rotation this weekend. I know last week it was kind of a surprise when they laid it out and there was no Andres Alvarez. There was no Christian Chatterton. Both those guys threw on Tuesday. So I'm not sure if there's something going on internally. It sounds like they both struggled during the fall, but those are 2 arms that Auburn really needs to be good if they want to go as deep as we kind of think they do. And then from a Florida State standpoint, I think Florida State right now is looking like the better team. And not only that, is they should be throwing I believe Trey Beard is going to be throwing against Auburn Saturday, most likely, as long as he's over a sickness that he had last weekend. And that's not a good matchup for an offense that's struggling right now.
No, not at all. I will say this because I know that we don't get a chance to talk about Florida State or the ACC. Can we stop with the Gary Sheffield son hitting in BP? I'm so tired of seeing that video. Like, I know that the kid's got unreal power, but can we stop with just the AI slop that comes off of that video? Like, it makes me want to not root for the kid. I know that sounds kind of weird to say, but I think Florida State will have Auburn's number here. The question is, I'm going to be honest, this feels like an 0-3 weekend for Auburn. And I know that that's kind of like a hot take and maybe an overreaction, but Louisville and Kansas, they get the bad draw of Kansas State on Friday, and then the bad draw of Louisville on Sunday, which I think Louisville has one of the better Sunday guys that Auburn's going to face. And you sandwich that in with Florida State, who's probably going to make the ballpark feel a little bit small. I know that I was in Arlington last weekend, and the ballpark really did play small. Auburn's going to have to score runs. They're going to have to manufacture runs. Because, again, it's been a Butch Thompson masterclass from pitching staff, but this lineup's just terrible in every sense of the word.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if it does, because you mentioned Louisville having the great Sunday starter. Do they keep Danilowitz on Sunday? I haven't seen them put out their projections yet, and it is early in the season to kind of move things around. I get that, but obviously he was by far their best arm against Michigan State last weekend. So I'm interested to see that too, because, I mean, Ethan Eberle and Jake Bean did not look great. And we kind of know what to expect out of Eberle, though. He was a big part of why they got to Omaha last year. So I assume he'll still keep the Friday spot. But yeah, let's see what they do with Danilowitz and Bean this weekend, because that kind of makes a big difference on who Auburn is matching up with here.
Yeah, Louisville, they didn't do first graphics last week, so I don't think that they're doing it. But yeah, it really would surprise me if they speed up a Sunday guy 1 week into the season.
Yeah.
Auburn, I think that last week from a bullpen standpoint, everything went so perfect that was why they kind of blew out Youngstown State as much as they did. I don't think you're going to be able to do that against Kansas State and Florida State. I think it's just going to be more high leverage, less innings in these high leverage situations. So does Auburn kind of have the depth with some of the guys that they throw in the midweek to play against Louisville? I think that they do. I think if you're actually going to make me pick a game that I feel the most confident about, it's them beating Auburn. It really wouldn't shock me if they went in and beat this Auburn team or this Louisville team at all.
No, I mean, in both, this is going to be a good game Sunday where there's a chance both teams are 0-2 coming into the Sunday, and especially with both teams kind of struggling through their opening week, it's going to be interesting to see like if the fire alarms are going off for both these fan bases come Sunday with 0-2, and to see which one drops to 0-3 and even more of a rough start.
Yeah, the thing that I kind of come back to was last year in Houston when Oklahoma State and Texas A&M faced off. Obviously, A&M had all the struggles early in the season, and then Oklahoma State went to Globe Life, and I think went either 1-2 or 0-3. And then they both played in that Saturday night game in a really close one. And even though Oklahoma State only won by 1 run, you really did kind of walk away from that game feeling like A&M was time to hit the panic button. That's I know you kind of mentioned it, but that's the vibe that I'm getting off this is, the panic button. And that's going to be that early game too, 10:30 local time, as both teams kind of get out of town. And I don't imagine Louisville or Auburn are going to be that crazy at a 10:30 Saturday game. So this really is going to have to be, dig down deep, be mentally tough kind of game. And I think that's who's going to come out and win as a team that's mentally tougher.
Yeah, I think Auburn needs to get one of the first two to feel good. And I think it most likely, obviously, we mentioned it, Kansas State, it gives them the better option just because of most likely facing Trey Beard, and the best team there, I think, is Florida State. So, yeah, I think if they need to get one of those first two, and that way also the weight is lifted off their back, where it's like, okay, we at least got one here. This is going to be our toughest kind of conference weekend. So let's at least get one, and that way you're 1-1 going into that Louisville game, and you can kind of just play free.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you don't know how tight they're going to be in a situation like that either. Yeah. That's something that I really kind of come back to. But let's move on into, in my opinion, the game that I was most excited for Monday morning, and then the game that I was probably not as excited about Wednesday morning. The Arkansas Razorbacks will welcome in the Xavier Musketeers. Xavier obviously took 2 of 3 from a very talented Eastern Carolina team, but they've lost 2 straight as Louisville beat them 23-11. Do you think we see more of that 4-3 that we saw on Friday, or do you think we see more of a 23-11 game in the series?
Gotta think it's going to be a 4-3 type for 2 reasons. I think that Xavier Louisville game was wild. I was watching just about every bit of it, where Xavier took a huge lead, then Louisville came back, then Louisville went up like 3 or 4, then Xavier came back and tied it, and then Louisville scored like 12 straight. It was just a weird thing, but I think Xavier is a top 2 or 3 team in the Big East, obviously along with Creighton and UConn. So I think this is going to be a great matchup. And this Arkansas offense is not built for shootouts, I don't think. And obviously, I don't think Xavier is going to put up 11 on Arkansas either, kind of like they did in the midweek against Louisville. So, yeah, I expect this to be lower scoring for sure. Now, where's this one? This is being played. This is in Baum-Marker. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Baum.
So this is, so
we're not going up to Cincinnati this early as Southern boys.
No, for some reason I was thinking it was neutral, but this is actually going to be a really good matchup. This is also one of those where it's like we're looking at possibly 2 tournament teams here, so this is a great kind of preseason test for both teams. I know Arkansas obviously got tested last weekend, and Xavier did as well going to East Carolina. But yeah, this is a very intriguing matchup to see what happens.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those ones if you're Xavier where you're going to try your hardest to steal one of those first 2 games. Read you off some stats about Xavier. Again, not everybody has played. So this is out of 290 teams. 263rd in ERA, 257th in WHIP, and then this is the kind of big glaring one for me, 270th in Ks per 9 as well. So they don't really strike out a lot of guys, and I think the thing for me is what Arkansas does with that lineup. I know that we've been talking about all these stud freshmen that Arkansas is going to try and slide in. Hey, Nolan Souza at the top of the order, he's really just in there to get at bats. What they kind of do with the lineup. I think Kahuwu Aloy, too, if he kind of returns to the lineup, and he had some stiffness, and DVH kind of asserted it, that it was all precautionary, what they kind of do with him. But I think for me, it's Carson Brumbaugh starting to take competitive at-bats. I wouldn't say that he had uncompetitive at-bats in Arlington, but you kind of looked up at the end of the week and you're like, wow, he only had 2 hits, hitting down in the 220s. I think for him to kind of get comfortable because he's their best fielder. I mean, when you really think about it, he beat out TJ Pompey, a 2-year starter at Texas Tech for shortstop, just straight up. And, you saw the arm on Sunday against Texas Tech because they put him to work. He probably has one of the strongest, I think he's got a stronger arm than Aloy last year. So, I mean, if he can hit even 250, 270, I think that really, really stretches out this Arkansas lineup because his glove is, I think, one of the better freshman gloves I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think they would absolutely be fine with him batting 250. I mean, you're looking down. I think he was hitting 8th most of the order last year until Ruiz got moved up. I think that's what they're looking for is just somebody who is going to field over 975 at shortstop, especially as a true freshman. If he can hit 250 and contribute offensively, that's even just a bonus. But it is one of those things where it's like if it gets compounded when the rest of the offense isn't hitting either, because then it's like, okay, it's not just your shortstop who's in there defensively isn't hitting, but if people around him aren't either, then it kind of becomes a lot more glaring. And in fairness to the kid, that was his very first opening weekend. I think he hit 2 or 3 other balls extremely hard.
Yeah.
Just right at guys.
And I'll say this too. He probably faced the best pitching of any freshman in the country.
Yeah, that's a very tough draw when you're going to that ballpark and you're facing Oklahoma State, TCU, and Texas Tech. That's getting thrown to the fire early.
I think the thing for me too is just the complacency from Arkansas. That was the one thing that we saw on Sunday against Texas Tech, which again, Arkansas lost a heartbreaker on Saturday night to TCU. They kind of sleptwalked through that Texas Tech game. Do they put Xavier away early? Because they have the pitching to put them away early. But again, Xavier can hit extremely, extremely well on the back end. That's the one thing for me is can they put a team away on Saturday? Because I felt like they really didn't do it against TCU. They definitely didn't do it against Texas Tech. Yes, they did it against Oklahoma State, but again, who didn't? But can they be a mature lineup and not compound at bats? I think that's the thing that I really didn't think we were going to see from Arkansas was the bat at bats. But on Sunday, it was just bat at bat after bat at bat after bat at bat.
Yeah, I think part of that too is, he started 4 freshmen, and I think that was DVH kind of giving I'm trying to think how to even word this. It's sort of like sending a message to his team about how there was a lot of uncompetitive at bats those first 2 games, and a lot of strikeouts from guys like Robinette you would think would never come out of the lineup. That was
weird. That was because it was the only. It was the only. I think
being sent.
Yeah, I forget if it was the only lefty or the only righty, just because it's kind of escaping me. But
it was only righty. Yeah, it was the only righty because they took out Robinette and Souza, so 2 lefties who would be facing a righty for the first time. Both got taken out of the lineup, so it was clearly a not matchup based or anything. It was just like, hey, we need to be more competitive with our ABs, and I don't care if you're one of the older guys on the team. We're talented enough and have the depth where we can play other guys over you if need be.
DVH always does weird stuff in that Arlington tournament. I'll say that.
Yeah, early in the season, it's time to do it too. And this is the same with every SEC team where it's early in the season matters a bit. Like obviously you don't want to lose a bunch of games, but your season rides on how you do in the SEC. If you win a certain amount of games, you're getting into the tournament. You're hosting as well, and that all depends on if Arkansas goes 18-12 in the SEC. Nobody's going to care if they lost 2 or 3 from Xavier week 2.
No, not at all. But the flip side of that is when Xavier kind of gets in that bubble talk, if they take 2 or 3 from Arkansas, everybody's going to remember that one.
It matters a lot more for Xavier than Arkansas. That 1,000% true.
Moving on to another team that I think has to have a bounce back start on Friday, the Florida Gators welcome the Kennesaw State Owls. Kennesaw State actually has a higher pair rating right now at 37, Florida at 44. But as you can tell, that really doesn't matter as Florida is projected to sweep the Kennesaw State Owls. It kind of hinted at it, but it's got to be Liam Peterson, right? This has got to be a Liam Peterson shove job.
We need to see it for sure. Yeah, because I mean, Aiden King and Cooper Wallace were great Saturday, Sunday against the UAB team, where we saw UAB might be the real deal, though. They just beat Cincinnati this afternoon, and Cincinnati threw Nate Taylor as well. So like they threw their ace against UAB, and UAB scored 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth to win it. So UAB might actually be good, but that's still not a game that if you're Florida, you should lose with your so-called ace on the mound, Liam Peterson. It absolutely has to be a bounce back for him, especially. And the team, the offense doesn't seem to have any issues right now. We saw what they did over in the midweek.
So Nick, I got a question for
winning
you.
Twice. Yeah.
Liam Peterson started on Friday night on opening day, right? Kevin O'Sullivan wasn't around that much in the fall.
Yeah.
Do you think that this was him just, oh yeah, we're going to start Liam Peterson on Friday? Or do you think that Liam Peterson earned it in the fall? And he should, because I think that that's the question that we're not going to know the answer of because we didn't watch every single Liam Peterson outing and bullpen in the fall. But if he was the best pitcher in the fall, I think his leash is a little bit longer. But if it's, hey, the Diamond Report projected Liam Peterson to be our Friday guy, like we might as well just put him in there. Which one do you think it is? Because I can kind of see both sides of it.
I think it's got to be, I mean, if you're Florida, you got to look at it as 1A and 1B is what they think they have, and I still think they have, where it's like, maybe we have 2 aces, and it probably didn't feel like they needed to be like, okay, this is our guaranteed Friday guy, this is our guaranteed Saturday guy. So it probably went to the more experienced one, which is Liam Peterson, I think, even though Aiden King has looked better probably second half of last year than obviously week 1 this year. So I think I still think it's 1A, 1B type of thing where it's, even if you flip-flop the 2, I'm not sure there's a huge difference between your Friday and Saturday. So there's going to be a long leash, I think, for Liam Peterson because of that reason. And until he proves like that he has multiple outings like he had last week, then I think he should have that Friday spot confirmed. Because like Sully, as much as we like to dog him and kind of the issues he does have, he is a very good coach. So I don't think
he knows he knows how to stay locked in. I'll say that.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything more to it than he just thinks Peterson might be 1A versus King being 1B.
Yeah, that's what I think. But I mean, if you're Kevin O'Sullivan, I don't really know how long you're going to put up with the up and downness of Liam Peterson when Aiden King and Cooper Wallace are pitching as good as they are.
Yeah.
That's kind of the other thing.
Yeah, and also if you're winning 2 or 3 games a weekend because King and Wallace are doing so well, then when do you flip it? Would be another question there too, because if Peterson is struggling, like maybe, and the problem is there, I guess you can't really lose every Friday in the SEC if Peterson is struggling, because we know how all the arms on Fridays in the SEC are. So I don't think it gets moved really until SEC play starts, and we kind of see how the competition rolls. If he's a competitive enough kid to kind of pick it up in the games that matter the most. So that's one thing. But for now, I mean, the offense will figure it out. They'll figure out a way to kind of back them and then be able to score some runs here on Friday against Kennesaw State team that I think went 3-1 opening weekend or 4-0, because I think they were in they were hosting a tournament, like a round robin type tournament. But this isn't a pitching staff that should be able to hold Florida down.
No, and I mean, you mentioned the lineup. I mean, it's been really, really good. Brendan Lawson's hitting 500. Cash Strayer's hitting 467. The old man Carson Bowen behind the plate's hitting 417.
Kyle Jones has been good. Yeah,
they cut a lot of juice. They've hit 11 home runs in just 4 games. It looks like a lineup of old, if you will, for Florida. But I mean, if the lineup can hit like they did, and again, it's just one weekend, and they can get those starts out of Walls and King, I mean, this is a dangerous, dangerous team that could shoot up polls, in my opinion.
Yeah, possibly. I'm still waiting to see on them for sure. I mean, I had them ranked 16th, so I'm not far off from the composite rankings. So I think that's about where I keep them for now. Like, nothing. I think what I've seen so far has been as advertised and as we expected, because we knew what this offense was going to be. We knew the pitching staff was going to be definitely above average. So until something like sticks out, I think they're right around where we expected, but can absolutely take a leap. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, they're the one that I think having the most trouble ranking, because there was just so much unknown with Kevin O'Sullivan. That's why I was really low on him. But again, it really wouldn't surprise me to kind of see him go on a roll. Moving on into the cocktail hour, if you will, the Georgia Bulldogs will welcome the Samford Bulldogs again. Samford fresh off of hosting Alabama, really kind of gave them a good scare. Georgia obviously lost on Sunday. They got the news on Kenny Ishikawa as he kind of left. I think he's going to be out for a week or so. But I feel like Georgia has the depth of any team to kind of have an injury like that go down and still feel the most fine about, I'll say.
Yeah, especially offensively. Losing him as leadoff hitter, losing your leadoff hitter for a week obviously hurts. Losing him as a pitcher on Sunday, he looked pretty good Sunday. I was surprised. I had never seen him pitch, and I've admitted that. Obviously, I don't watch a lot of Seattle baseball games, so that was good to kind of see what he looked like on the mound. So I'll be interested to see what they do on Sunday. My assumption is just move Matt Scott up from Stanford, just because of how obviously Caden Aoki has that experience as a starter too. But he looks so good out of the pen against Wright State. I think he went
you might not want to mess with it.
Scoreless. That I think that's kind of might be his role, where it's like I'll go like to a Tennessee comparison where it feels like obviously they're completely different arms, like a Nate Snead type, where it's like anytime your starter doesn't go deep into a game, you have this guy right behind him that you can put in, and he can get you 4 to 5 innings and kind of be that bridge to a setup closer type. So I think he's going to be great in that spot, and so I don't think they'd want to move him to weekend rotation. So yeah, Matt Scott would be my best guess. Is probably who they'd bump into that Sunday role for at least this week.
I mean, if we were talking about Liam Peterson being a roller coaster, Matt Scott, I think it's the ultimate roller coaster.
Well, I mean, Volchko's there too. He obviously had a good outing last week, but we saw him last year, so that's another one of those where let's see it for multiple outings. But yeah, this feels like a Georgia pitching staff that we aren't actually going to get a lot of answers for until we get an SEC play when they open up with Tennessee. I think that's kind of when you really get your answer, just looking at their schedule. I mean, they have, you mentioned Samford, who's really good, and that's not like no slouch to Stanford, but then they get Oakland and Queens the next 2 weekends. So I think there's still a lot of questions with this pitching staff, as talented as they are, to actually prove it and the stats to back it up come SEC play.
Kenny Ishikawa has a hairline fracture and is week to week. According to Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com. I think for me, does Colby Branch and Michael O'Shaughnessy get going? I know that O'Shaughnessy has only started that one game as he's had some pinch hit stuff, but him and Colby Branch, I think, have been the two most surprising things for me, is that they're not hitting the ball better than they are. Phelps is kind of launching homers, Daniel Jackson is, but Colby Branch just isn't really having competitive at-bats, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's one, though, that I trust to get it going just because of his experience, being one of the older kind of vets that you kind of get in the SEC and on this Georgia team. He's been too good the last couple of years to where it's like you kind of expect a guy like that he'll get it going at some point.
I don't know. We saw it last year with some of these COVID guys that, they start to kind of get a little bit of a age regression. You wouldn't think about that in a college kid, but maybe, Father Time's finally starting to catch up to old Colby Branch, if you will.
I don't think so.
For me, I think that this is a big one as we transition to, that's not the Friday game. That is the Sunday game. As we transition into LSU down in Jacksonville. I think for me, does Georgia come out and dominate? I know that they did on Friday, but again, for me, I think it's just one of those ones where playing a tournament, Georgia, I'd rather see you dominate a tournament than just kind of mess around, if you will. Them in Florida, I think, are my two biggest gripes about people not playing enough. I guess that is the Friday game. I don't know why I thought that they're playing Indiana on Sunday. But I wish Georgia would play a tougher non-conference than they do. And I get Florida's excuse. I get Miami's excuse of, hey, we have this great weather. People will come down and play at us. I don't think Georgia has that excuse. They should be playing in tournaments. They should be going to Globe Life. They should be going to Jacksonville and playing in something so we could get a good barometer of where they are.
Yeah, I mean, you look at other teams like you just mentioned, like you get Arkansas, you get Xavier coming down. Kentucky isn't playing the best one either, but yeah, LSU's playing in a tournament. Mississippi State obviously next week is in a tournament.
Kentucky's playing on the road though.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do my alma mater dirty, but it's at Evansville. So I get there playing on the road, but it's also a 2-hour drive. So in that place, we'll still have a lot of Kentucky fans. So that part is one thing, but yeah, it's one of those where it does feel like you wish some of these teams would play better. At least Florida has Miami. So
to be fair, Kentucky went to Round Rock a few years ago too. Like I don't think I can ever recall a time Georgia's been in a tournament.
A few years ago this year.
Georgia's never played anybody, never played in a tournament.
It doesn't feel like it. At least since Wes has been there. And it could be. It honestly would it shock you, at least being a baseball kind of guy, where it's like knowing how many transfer and knowing like Wes Johnson's going to be like the big transfer portal guy every single year. Is he like, okay, we're going to need 4 weeks to figure things out, and I don't care if we're playing competition or not. We just need 4 weeks to gel and kind of figure out how these lineups of transfers are going to work out and how the pitching staff's going to work out. So I could see that being a reason, but obviously, yeah, just competitive wise and as a fan alone. Would definitely love to see it.
I know that Josh Holiday at Oklahoma State said that he never felt the need to hide his team because he would rather know who they were the first week of the season than they get punched in the mouth in Big 12 play. I wouldn't say that Georgia's hiding, but it feels like this is a team where when they play somebody in the SEC and they come out and get punched in the mouth, like you could blink and compound in your sweat. Like we don't know how tough this Georgia team is mentally. Because they're playing, let me figure out a right superlative. Mid-majors? I'll just use the politically correct term. But they're not even playing like elite mid-majors. Like it's not Troy's coming to town.
I would give Wright State's up. Wright State's a tournament team every year.
Wright State's not coastal though. They're not a
nobody's coastal right now.
Yeah, that's what I said. But
yeah.
Like it'd be one thing if you were like, okay, they're playing a mid-major, but it's like an elite mid-major. Like they're playing
mid-major as well. But yeah, that when you go, then the next two you get, like I said, Oakland and Queens. Those two are just rough.
Yeah, it's brutal. But let's move on to the LSU Tigers, who are challenging themselves in a Jacksonville tournament. Many thought they were going to be in Round Rock. They're actually double booked for the weekend. Jacksonville won the rights. They play Indiana, then Notre Dame, followed by we'll get to the Sunday. I don't know why the Sundays are eluding me, but for me, it's all about LSU.
Sundays, UCF.
UCF,
pretty good, yeah.
It's all about LSU for me this weekend. It's can they come out, dominate another tournament, do backflips into the pool like they did last year when they were up at Frisco. But I'm really not this worried about this Tigers team at all.
I am still extremely worried about this pitching staff. You're talking about 23 runs in 5 games for a staff that should have a bunch of MLB arms. That part is still very concerning to me. The offense, obviously, we know what the offense is. They're going to score. So that's not an issue. I wish, if it were up to me, I really wish they were playing Notre Dame on a Friday just because I want to see the Jack Riddell versus this LSU offense matchup. Because Indiana's okay. They're probably mid-pack of the Big Ten this year, which obviously is, when you think of the Big Ten Conference, not fantastic, and getting swept by UNC last week, but with a chance to win twice. So I will say that. So Indiana doesn't look too bad. But yeah, at least you mentioned it with they're challenging themselves. And especially these are, considering LSU's giving up that many runs against Milwaukee, Kent State, and Nichols, these are 3 much, much, much better offenses that they'll be facing this week in a ballpark that's also very conducive to runs. So I'm interested to see. I know what the offense is. We know what we're getting week in and week out. But yeah, let's see what this pitching staff does.
Yeah, if you remember, this was kind of the coming out party for Justin LeBron was in this Jacksonville tournament when the ball was just jumping off his bat. I think the crazy thing to me is just how aggressive LSU is, like on the bases. I know that Zach York did his steal, but there's a lot of guys where you watch them and they go first to third a ton. You see balls in the dirt and go immediately. I think that's been the most impressive thing. Because I was trying to think back. Maybe that 23 team had a little bit of it, but this is an aggressive base running team. I think that's the one surprise, if you will. I think the pitching staff's eventually going to figure it out. William Schmidt, I know that he had a lot of runs. They gave up a few home runs. I didn't think he was out. I thought it was like a C outing, like a good opening day outing.
It was a very William Schmidt outing. It was a bunch of strikeouts with a bunch of walks. Like it was
Yes.
just it was one of those outings.
But I think that unlike last year, this LSU team really kind of can go in and dominate weekends and blink. And I know for me personally with that Nichols game, I was kind of like half watching it. And I was like, oh, wait, it's over. Like LSU run rolled them. Saturday, that's when they'll kind of play Notre Dame. I forget the kid's name as we're not an ACC show, but per Monty Taylor, Notre Dame is throwing a freshman. So it's a kind of a throwing it to the wolves situation, if you will. But again, for me, it's all about LSU this weekend.
Yeah, kid's name, Caden Crowell. Yeah, he started last Saturday as well. He was a very highly touted recruit that Notre Dame's not used to getting baseball-wise. So it's a very, very good arm. But yeah, this is a big difference for them. They went down. They were in Florida last week, and was either FAU or FIU that Notre Dame played, and actually played pretty well because I think FAU. I mean, I think it was FAU because FAU is usually pretty good. So yeah, this is a good matchup. But yeah, I really do expect LSU to sweep through this. And my question, like I said, it just goes back to the pitching staff for me because we kind of know what we're getting out of Casey Evans. And now what does Cooper Moore, we haven't talked about yet. We need a better outing from him. And then we already talked about William Schmidt as well. But one good note, I would say, on the pitching staff is Gavin Guidry has looked like the 2 years ago Gavin Guidry again.
Oh, my gosh, he's been amazing.
Yeah, where he can be that guy where it's like, okay, if we're up 1 in the 9th, you know who's getting the ball and you're not scoring against them. So that has been a good sign after missing last year.
Yeah, and I know for him, even 2 years ago, that sophomore year, like he kind of got hit around a little bit, if you remember. Like against
that
was
also that was the first year. That's when he was still playing some shortstop as well, and he was kind of trying like a little two-way thing before moving to pitcher only. So I think that was a little bit of it because you mentioned it, it was a bit of a struggle until once he's been pitcher only, he's been lights out.
Just trying to pull the stats up on Guidry here because I know that they've been just ridiculous. He's been absolutely nails. There he is, 8. Because I want to read off like his exact stats. Let's see. There we go. And they don't have them uploaded yet. So I want to say it's – here it comes. It's what, 2-3 innings? I don't think he's allowed a hit and struck out a ton. Here we go. Yeah, 2 innings, 1 hit against Milwaukee with 5 Ks, 2 1/3, no hits, 5 Ks for Guidry. So through 13 batters, he struck out 10 of them and allowed 1 hit. I mean, that's just an insane thing. And his outing against Kent State, 24 strikes versus 9 balls, 19 strikes versus 9 balls against Milwaukee. So he's pounding the zone, striking guys out. Time to bring back the Gravedigger nickname, if you will.
He's been everything we expected. And for a team that, imagine what they would have been last year if they had had him on the back end too, it would have been even scarier. So yeah, it's good to see him back, and you can tell he's fully healthy.
What do you think they do with the outfield as Stanfield kind of works his way back, by the way?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's a broken bone in his hand, I believe is what I saw. So I think it's going to be about 3, 4, 5 weeks where he's out. But that's a good question. And I think what I would do is, and I believe Seth Dardar had experience in the outfield at Kansas State, if I'm not mistaken. So that could possibly be a way to where you get Dardar and Simpson's bats both in the lineup, because that's probably the way you would want to do it. But obviously, I mean, you have William Patrick, a highly touted freshman, Daniel Harden, also highly touted freshman, who could also go out there and play. But yeah, I think the goal would probably, if I had to guess, I'm guessing Dardar plays left, just so that him and Simpson are both in the lineup.
He, according to Kansas State website, played second, third, and first base. But
Okay,
I mean,
he played out for Sunday.
you're not going to take Curiel out of the outfield. You're not
No.
going to take Jake Brown out of the outfield.
And if you're going to trust somebody to play a corner outfield spot, it's usually like moving a middle infielder to a corner outfield spot. You kind of expect them to be able to make plays.
I'll say this: Reeves is hitting 500, but I thought Reeves was a little bit closer to Dardar in the second base competition. And then when I talked to Jay Johnson, he said no, that really wasn't ever as close as I was making it out to be. But he's a guy that I've always really, really liked. But Stanfield was the guy last year. Like, he had their highest average in SEC play. It's a broken hand, and he's a really athletic guy, so you have to feel like it's not going to affect his legs. I'm just glad I'm not Jay Johnson, because it seems like a lose-lose situation with whoever who ends up starting in this situation.
Or you could look at the other way, and it's a win-win situation where no matter whoever you're throwing out there is good.
Yeah, even somebody like Cerna. I know that they DH Cerna and Aaron Beatty to get him in the lineup. So it feels like everybody that Jay Johnson throws out there, hits 500 with multiple bombs. But I predict the 3-0 weekend. I think it's a little bit different than Auburn. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I do think it's a 3-0 weekend. I would say be wary of, I think if they drop one, I think it's UCF on Sunday. This UCF offense is very good. And if William Schmidt has another bad outing, they're not going to be able to come back like they did against Milwaukee.
Yeah, they're not going to come back in that way. This one will be a little bit quicker just because, again, it's Kentucky versus Evansville. Kentucky has an 87% chance to win this one. For me, it's just getting production in the wake of Tyler Bell being out. That's the thing for me.
Yeah, and we saw the lack of production. I mean, getting beat by Morehead State, and another in-state kind of small school is not great during a midweek, so that wasn't ideal. But obviously, beating UNCG, taking 3 out of 3 against them is a good sign. And now, on the road at Evansville, should be able to take care of business. Evansville can score runs. That's not going to be an issue, I think, and we'll kind of see. We'll see this, and they definitely have a better offense than UNCG. UNCG relies a little bit more on their pitching staff, and Evansville relies on their offense. So this will be a great kind of. I would hate to say like but it is pre-conference. It feels like preseason with Kentucky. Their schedule is another one that we can complain about, considering it's UNCG, Evansville, St. John's, and the Citadel. So that's another one we can complain about. So it is one of those where we can get Jackson Jelkin, Nate Harrison, Ben Cleaver with probably the best offensive matchup they'll get in the 4 kind of leading up weekends. So that I'm interested to see, but I think this offense should be able to score enough where it's, if a sweep would be disappointing if you're Kentucky. Or not getting a sweep, sorry. Not getting a sweep.
Yeah, I think I should say this, that they moved Hindle over to second, and they moved Lawrence over to short, and Hindle's been their best hitter. So the guy that they quote-unquote slide in is playing extremely, extremely well. Luke Lawrence obviously is sitting down at 250, as I think the defense has been a big step up. But what I think for me is just consistency from Kentucky. Yes, they have consistency in Jelkin. Yes, they have consistency in Cleaver. But from a lineup, I think, you could sit here and say, oh, boo-hoo me, we lost our best player on the opening weekend. But it's also a great opportunity for somebody like Ethan Hindle or somebody like Luke Lawrence to really kind of step up and be a leader on this team. I think that's the one thing for me is, can Kentucky, like the games, and this is really weird to say, but I feel like these games don't really matter as much as it's me becoming confident in the lineup that Kentucky's going to roll out there more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's how I am with a lot of the preseason games, especially like SEC wise. It's more of, and I hate to keep harping on it, but I know Auburn, like how they've looked and how Alabama's 4-1. So it's one of those where it feels like, or 3-1, or where it feels like, okay, they're 3-1. The record looks okay, but what I've seen like with my eyes and like how much we watch games and all this stuff, like the stuff we're looking for from doing our preseason kind of info, like looking for info and deep dives of how we think these teams are going to look. Seeing it match up and like what our expectations are of these teams and certain whether it's the pitching staff or the offense is kind of what I'm looking for more than actual, I would say, total results. Kind of to put it one way.
Yeah, and I think that you and I kind of have the same opinion on that. Obviously, Kentucky has that 66% to sweep. I think that we'll see more of the same. Moving on to another series that has a ton of juice. The Ole Miss Rebels welcome the Missouri State Bears. Missouri obviously took 2 of 3 from UL. I did get a little bit of an insider information from UL's SID. Missouri has some dudes Missouri State has some dudes that can really, really swing it. It really wouldn't surprise me to see them kind of go in and steal one of these games, if you will.
I think they will. And yeah, it's one of those, it's tough to kind of guess which one. I mean, obviously Hunter Elliott throwing Friday, I wouldn't think it'd be that one. But yeah, I would not be shocked with this Missouri State offense if they win a game. We saw it last year when they went down and beat Arkansas. So it's one of those where it's like this team is battle tested. They brought back a lot from last year as well, and it's basically them and Dallas Baptist that are going to mostly kind of run the CUSA. So it's like this is a very good team, and this is a team that can also this can also be a tournament team. Like CUSA has a chance to get 2 wins if Missouri State plays up to expectations, because we know Dallas Baptist is getting in with how good
they were 2 bid last year with Western Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. And that was Louisiana Tech barely missing out too. So that was they were almost a 3 bid league. So it's one of those where this is I haven't, not gonna lie, I have watched half of an Ole Miss game so far. It feels like, and I don't know why, I don't know, the draw of Nevada didn't like get me intrigued enough. Like, and there were so many, like their games were all like in the middle of the afternoon when there was 6 or 7, 8 other games on that I was trying to watch. I watched 5 at a time. I've got that.
I think they played at 4 on Friday.
Yeah, I got the quad box on 4, like 4, so 4 going on one TV. I have a second TV where I have another game going. So, and it just didn't quite make the cut. So I'm interested, and I will be watching probably all 3 of these, just so that I can do more research on Ole Miss, and because I think Murray State is one of the better matchups that we're getting SEC wise this weekend.
So learn the name Caden Bogenpool. He's a 6'6" center fielder.
Yep.
He absolutely flies. He can hit for power. D1 had him as a freshman All-American all the way back in 2024. But for me, I know that Ole Miss had a really loud opening weekend in Arlington and then really flew under the radar until SEC play. I think that's what we're going to see from Ole Miss again this year, is they're just going to take care of business, and you're going to look up and they're 22-1, and they haven't really been that impressive. But they're not bad unimpressive either. Like, I feel like a lot of their games from here on out are going to be 6-2, 5-3, where it's okay, they didn't almost blow it, but they also didn't run roll them. But for me, I think it's just the bullpen still. The lineup's going to hit. Udemark's going to launch home runs early in games. Federico's going to hit. It's the pitching staff for me still, which again, it feels like we're almost in talking points. But outside of Hunter Elliott, what are we going to get from this pitching staff?
Yeah, that and I still have concerns. Like I said, I haven't had a ton of eyes on it. Just kind of looking at box score, still quite a few concerns about the bottom of this lineup, which is what we both talked about in our kind of preseason show, where it's we know what Ole Miss is going to get out of their top 4 guys. What are they going to get out of the bottom 4, bottom 5? So that's kind of another interest to me. And then, next weekend we're going to get a better idea against the Baylor team who looks very good, and they play Coastal next Sunday, which is going to be a lot of fun. So this is a weekend where you mentioned it. I think Missouri State gets 1. I don't know if it'll be Saturday or Sunday. So
it wouldn't shock me if they beat them Friday.
I don't know. I don't think they beat Hunter Elliott personally, but I mean, I don't know. Let's see what they have, because Missouri State has proven they can kind of score on anybody. So if Ole Miss can match them, I think this is one where, even though it's 2 powerful offenses, I'm interested to see what this total is going to be. So this will be one that is going to have my attention. And then, you could look at possible overs on Saturday and Sunday, because these 2 teams should put up runs.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to put up runs. As we look at it, this is the closest obviously the Auburn ones and the LSU ones are a little bit closer, but this is the closest one Friday night. According to Pair, it's actually closer than Indiana LSU. So I think it's going to be a fantastic, fantastic game. Let's move south and east, if you will, as the Mississippi State Fighting Brian O'Connors. As we wait for the graphic to kind of pop up. Where'd you go? We'll welcome the Delaware Blue Hens. Hold on. There we go. Give me a second. There we go. Delaware, again, they did beat probably my favorite feel-good story of the year on the Sol. So Delaware is public enemy number one in my book before they play Mississippi State because they beat LaSalle for the first time of the year. But this is another one where it's going to be a very irrelevant Mississippi State early season matchup where, if it's Chris Lemonis, you kind of worry about it. But with Brian O'Connor and the arms that they roll out, I don't really feel that worried about these kinds of games anymore.
No, I just want to see Mississippi State be more dominant. Like we talked about this, is this a top 5 team in the country? All those expectations are sky high in Starkville, especially with this, everything they brought in. You mentioned Brian O'Connor. You talk about these transfers they brought in. You talking about Ace Reese that they brought back. So it's like you have all these names. Last week against Hofstra, it felt like a kind of like a blah type of weekend. Like, yes, they swept, but it was definitely not in dominating fashion. And now you're getting a Delaware team who just got swept by Elon. So I want to see Mississippi State kind of step up and be that dominant team that we think they could be, personally.
Yeah, it was just kind of blah for me.
Yeah.
Yes, they won. Yes, they went 3-0. Yes, Ace Reese hit an absolute mammoth moonshot. But outside of that, it's just take care of business for me.
Yeah, and exactly. Again, but like I said, take care of business for me doesn't mean just going 3-0. Like I want to see it being an impressive 3-0 this weekend, personally, especially just because of to know better what to expect going into week 3 when they have Arizona State, Virginia Tech, and UCLA.
Do you think we see Jack Bauer at all this weekend? I know he pitched in the midweek.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll just be a bullpen. I mean, it's just probably late a Saturday or Sunday, just bullpen. Kind of the same thing. It's going to be two innings, 3 innings type of thing. And I think that's going to be his role for at least most of the season, I would think, until maybe come like halfway through when he starts throwing maybe 3-4 innings. I still don't think he ever becomes a rotation guy, at least this season. And that's just my opinion on it. So yeah, I think I think we'll see him, but it'll be in a short stint again.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be in short stints. Let's move on as we kind of fly along some of these before. The Missouri Tigers will play the University of New Haven. It'll be in Florida. Before we talk about the games themselves, I want to just ask you a little bit of New Haven trivia, if you will.
Oh, well,
where is the University of New Haven?
Connecticut.
What's their mascot?
That I don't know. I would say, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you. The tunas. I know there's a lot of tuna fishing out there.
The Rangers? I don't know. I couldn't find anything. Oh, it's the alma mater of Tony Sperano. But
good info. Does he play baseball? Will he help them beat Missouri? It's very possible.
Well, he's dead, so probably not.
Well, I know that.
This is also, fun fact, the University of New Haven's first D1 baseball game as they just moved up. How embarrassing, given the low expectations that we have for Missouri, would it be to lose Friday night?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it going to be more embarrassing than losing last Friday to Mount St. Mary's? We know there's some good D2 programs out there, so it's not like I'm not sure like how New Haven was last year before moving up, but it's not like D2s in the Northeast are exactly some of the D2s like Tampa in Florida or some of the southern D2s. But yeah, I think the Mizzou thing, it's tough. I mean, it's I don't even know what to talk about with them. Like, yeah, they had that offense explosion last Sunday. Got beat by a team. They had FAU on Tuesday that we know is just better than Mizzou, and they kind of hung close. Like 4-2 is a pretty surprising score, to be honest. But Yeah, this is one of those and just for like end of season record purposes, like when you look back on the season, you need it to be 3 wins here, and then going into Arkansas Pine Bluff, who should be 2 wins as well during the midweek. So this should be a 5-0 stretch for Mizzou, like just for confidence wise, going into further down the season.
I don't know. I mean, I think Pine Bluff beat them last year.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
But
Pine Bluff
if you're curious, they went 24-20. They went 24-20 and got bounced in the first game of their conference tournament. I would go as far as to say, and there's been a lot of lowlights in the Carrick Jackson era. This would be the most embarrassing loss of any SEC team ever if they lose this game Friday night.
Any SEC team ever?
An SEC team losing to a team's first D1 game ever. And think about that for a second.
Yeah, no. And the weird thing is, everybody's going to push it off as, oh, well, it's not Mizzou. But yeah, it would. I mean, it'd definitely be a tough look. That's why I said Mizzou needs to go 3-0. Just for a confidence standpoint, because who knows what starts going on in that locker room, for sure. If they happen to drop that.
Yeah, it's a close-knit group, I should say. I mean, we saw that last year when they were 0-24 and then swept Texas A&M. So, at the very least, they're not going to quit. But, again, I feel like this is one where if you're Missouri, you just have to come out and dominate it, like in every sense of the word.
Yeah, it needs to be 3-0.
Moving on, let me try and find it here. I didn't even clip this one, so because it is the single most embarrassing thing ever. The Oklahoma Sooners will welcome the Coppin State Eagles to the Dale. OU has a 99.4% chance of winning on Friday night against Coppin State. Coppin State is ranked 290th in the pair RPI. 290 teams have played games, Nick, so they are last in the RPI. Do we want to take this time to sound off on Oklahoma scheduling a game like this?
Well, Warren Nolan even has them RPI 233, so it's even worse there. And they've only played one game, and that's Mount St. Mary's. Oklahoma, I can give a pass to this week, and that's mostly because we saw them in Shriners week 1, and then they have 2 games against Arizona State, then they have 3 against Gonzaga, then they have Dallas Baptist, and then they have Santa Clara for 4 before going into SEC play. So I would honestly say Oklahoma probably has the toughest schedule, like non-SEC schedule of all the SEC teams. So the fact they're playing one weekend against Coppin State, I'm actually okay with and giving them a pass because the rest of it absolutely makes up for it.
I was actually going to say that too. So I'm kind of a little bit sad that you stole my thunder a little bit from me. But Cam Johnson's always been a roller coaster guy.
Yep.
He can get up for big games. This is not a big game. So this is one where if you're Cam Johnson, are you mentally prepared enough to go in, shut down a lineup that's not powerful by any stretch of the imagination, and throw 5 shutout innings in under 65 pitches? Because that's really what I kind of expect. But the flip side of that, Nick, is anybody can go up there and take walks. Anybody can go up there and take 5 or 6 walks in a row.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing for me is can he come out and dominate and really kind of put the pressure on him?
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's not even – I wouldn't even say it has to be dominant. For me, it's more of can he control like the strike zone? Can he stay in the strike zone? Because if he gets beat with a couple hits in the strike zone, I'm okay with that because at least that's different than the Cam Johnson we've seen the last couple of years. So it's like, yes, as long as and if his stuff's in the strike zone, he should quote unquote dominate Coppin State. So like this is one where it's like, yeah, let's stop the roller coaster. Let's stay on a high coming off of last week. And then, leading into some better competition later on the road is when we'll really find out about him. But yeah, this should be one where, it feels like even though he had that great week 1 outing, if he drops back down in any way this weekend, then back comes the conversation of, okay, are we sure the old Cam Johnson's gone?
I know that's the thing for me is I know because I was there on Friday, I was really worried about when we got into the second inning and everybody on social media was kind of tweeting out. I was like, guys, let's chill out. I've seen a lot of his starts before. He kind of gets chased. But I think that's the thing for me. Again, the lineup's going to bang. I'm really not that worried about it. I think it'll be 3-run rules. I think they'll get a couple of Beaumonts, if you will. That's 3 innings of more than 2 runs. We won't spend too much time on them, but probably my favorite series/tournament of the weekend, the South Carolina Gamecocks take on Army, Navy, and Air Force.
Yeah.
It gives the Air Force boys a chance to play Army and Navy because they don't have to go all the way out there. I think Paul Mainieri welcoming the 3 military academies comes at the perfect time. It's all these NIL kids, and he's having to take all the heat for how they're lazy and don't want to work hard. And he gets probably the complete inverse of the NIL era in 3. I think that South Carolina, more than the games themselves, is going to learn about who they are as people, which sounds cheesy like a Disney movie. I'm envisioning Paul Mainieri as the Disney movie. He's the Robert De Niro.
Yeah, it does come at a perfect time. And I think it's cool that they're doing this for sure. And like we've talked about like some bad schedules the SEC plays. I enjoy this a lot, the fact they're doing it. I will say Saturday, be careful if you're South Carolina of Navy. Navy's good in the Patriot League. And we've seen, and I believe South Carolina, they haven't put it out, but I'm assuming it'll be Ant Phillips again, the upstate transfer, who will probably throw on Saturday. So it's interesting to me. Like, do I think I could see them dropping one, just because I still don't trust the South Carolina team a lot. But yeah, I think if they do, it'll be Saturday. But I believe if I had to bet on it, I think South Carolina should go 3-0 here.
I should say this. Army gave everything to Clemson on Friday night. Like, I want to say they were winning in the 7th. And then obviously Army doesn't have the pitching that the other schools do in terms of Clemson. But I think Friday is the night that South Carolina beats them, or that Army beats South Carolina.
I could see it.
One more thing.
Keep it tough.
For any South Carolina fans out there, I wanted to point something out that happened. Roman Kimball has an ERA in the 6s. And so do with that information what you will. Against Miami, he recorded 1 out and gave up a home run. So maybe there's some solace, if you will, in that aspect of it. But for me, it's South Carolina. They should not drop a series. But again, Navy's an old team. Army's got a really high-quality Friday guy. Air Force beat – I forget who they beat. That was kind of surprising to me down in the Desert Invitational. This is another one where South Carolina's going to have to bring their A game every single weekend.
Oh, they run-rolled Penn State.
Yeah, they run-rolled Penn State.
And they beat UConn 12-6. So those are 2 perennially good teams. And, so Air Force took care of them too. This is not going to be you see service academies against South Carolina, and if you don't pay close attention to college baseball, you think South Carolina should just walk through this. If they try to walk through a game, they will get beat.
Yeah, 100%. I think they actually go 1-2 this weekend. Let's move on.
You think they lose twice? I like it.
Let's move on into the Tennessee Volunteers. They welcome the Kent State Golden Flashes. Again, this is another one that I was really, really excited about until I saw the midweeks, as Kent State was 3-0 before that midweek where they kind of got embarrassed by LSU. Actually, embarrassed isn't the right word.
Yeah, 10-7's. Yeah, 10-7's not bad.
What Kent State do you think we see? Do we see LSU kind of playing around with them in midweek, or do we see what Tennessee did last weekend?
Well, I think I'll put it somewhere in the middle between the two, because like I said, I have issues with LSU pitching staff like that I don't for the Tennessee pitching staff. And you look at what Kent State did is I believe they're the favorites in the MAC once again. And then to go down to Hammond and beat Southeastern Louisiana 3 times and fairly handily 3 times is impressive. And maybe Southeastern Louisiana is not supposed to be as good as normal this year, but I think they're picked as favorites. But I just can't. I think it's a good matchup, especially if you're Kent State too. This is kind of your Super Bowl type weekend. Why wouldn't it be? But yeah, if you're Tennessee, it should be take care of business. This should be a sweep. All three starters are healthy, and I want to see them both. I want to see all three dominate again, just like they did last week. Because I know the offense will score. We'll see that. But yeah, this should be, if you're a Tennessee fan, this should be a dominating weekend. But this is another one where you can't take Kent State likely because it feels like they're a top mid-major.
So a few things. Southeastern lost a ton off of that roster. They're not picked. But again, it's still a Sun Belt team playing a MAC team. I think Kent State beats them Sunday. I feel like a Georgia Wright State scenario last week where Tennessee maybe dominates the first two games and then Kent State gets them on a Sunday when they kind of catch them sleeping.
Well, I would say that's the good thing about Evan Blanco being the Sunday guy is just because you know what you're getting out of Evan Blanco. Personally, I think if you could see it being, if it was one of the other two who are more like hype reliant, where it's like they are like, you think of like Liam Doyle type last year, like you talk about those guys being on Friday, Saturday for Tennessee, and Evan Blanco is kind of your steady Eddie type. So I feel like you know what you're going to get. I could see, if anything, it'd be because the offense would be lackadaisical Sunday. So I could see
that's
that.
What I was thinking. Or a bullpen.
I could see that, but Brandon Arvidson's coming back. That's another thing to look out for this weekend. He's back should be good to go. I believe they're going to hold him to a 2-inning limit. So we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, this is a team that, as a Tennessee fan, then it should be a sweep. Personally, and then going into the big one next weekend in Arlington.
Yeah, I'm excited for that Arlington one. I'm going to be there. How many run rules do you think we have?
And for Tennessee?
Yes.
I'll say 2.
2? Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Hold on a second. I got to delete some of these files off of the back end. Let's see. Moving on into another series that I think has a ton of intrigue. The Texas Longhorns welcome the Michigan State Spartans. So we get that all pulled up. There we go. Michigan State obviously took 2 of 3 from Louisville. Texas swept UC Davis and then beat Lamar in the midweek, which I think was a really, really impressive one for them.
Mm-hmm.
For Texas, it's what does Ruger Riojas look like when they take that step up in competition? I think he comes out and dominates. I think it's another kind of quick, short weekend. But I think that these are going to be kind of low-scoring games, though. That's my hot take of the weekend.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I was happy with this Michigan State offense last weekend to see what they did against Louisville. But maybe Louisville pitching staff on Friday and Saturday just didn't show up. It could be one of those as well, especially a northern team going that far south. And we know what Texas' pitching staff is in that ballpark, too. This is not Louisville's ballpark. It's going to be much tougher to score. And also, the Michigan State pitching staff was very, very good against Louisville. So, and I still have questions. I know you do too about this Texas offense, kind of as a whole. We know we're getting out of the main, like we know we're getting out of Mendoza. Does Tenney hit the ball a little bit better this weekend? Like we still
had 2 home runs in the midweek.
Yeah, the on base percentage is great. So that's still a plus. But yeah, let's see what we completely get out of it. So, but yeah, I'm with you. This should be a low scoring series, and I believe Texas should sweep or will sweep. But this is not one that I will be absolutely shocked to see Michigan State steal one, because it's still a P4 team and still a talented team. So I wouldn't be completely shocked if there's a low scoring game where, say, Michigan State pulls one out like 3-2 or something like that.
Yeah, for me, first off, I know that I was just looking to see if Texas officially released. I don't think they do anything with Ruger, Luke Harrison, or Volantis.
No, I think it stays the same for now.
You mentioned Evan Blanco on Sunday. That's how I feel about Dylan Volantis. I think if they do it, I don't think Harrison throws back-to-back kind of mass starts, though. That's the thing that really kind of gets me about this weekend. I think Texas sweeps. I don't think they look pretty doing it, but I think they win all 3 games, because it's really hard for me to say Luke Harrison has another mass start. It's impossible to imagine Dylan Volantis getting chased early. I think Texas kind of wins some 6-2, 5-1s, those kind of games.
Yeah, and we've seen, and I kind of want to see us with a bit better off. This is a better offense that Valanches will be facing as a starter, so I'm not expecting the 7 innings, 9 Ks, 1 hit again, because we've seen him start 2 games now in his career. Tennessee beat the crap out of them in the SEC tournament when he started, and now obviously week 1 looked a lot better. So like this is going to be a better test, and I'll take more out of this, like whether Valanches can be a true starter moving forward. I'll take more out of this weekend than last weekend. Last weekend was impressive to see, but it's still like, okay, like let's look at the competition a little bit type of thing. So, but I think this is one of those, like I said, they should win all 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if they drop one, like drop a low scoring one. But this Texas bullpen is just tough. So even if one of the starters doesn't have their on game, it's still one of those that you look for that back of that end of that bullpen to take care of business.
Jim Schlossnagle in his media availability too said that Jonah Williams might pinch hit here. They're still trying to work to get him ramped up coming off of the football season. What do you think that they do ultimately with the outfield first week of SEC play? Obviously, Aiden Robbins is going to be in center. Pack's kind of had a little bit of a slow start. Larson's had a little bit of a slow start. What do you think they do?
I think Jonah Williams does end up earning a spot out there, just because of it felt like towards the end of last year when he was getting in full baseball mode, like we saw him kind of click and turn it on a little bit. And I think that's more the case the longer this kid plays baseball. Like you don't understand playing baseball in college, like the way, like when we did it, it's a full-time job. You're talking 60 to 70 hours a week spent on baseball. And if you're spending half of that amount of time, or even with Jonah Williams, where it's Texas and he was putting Texas football comes first. Like it was like Sark was having to tell him when he could go do the baseball stuff. So the fact that he's just now getting fully into baseball it's going to take some time. So that's expected, but I do think it's going to be Jonah Williams. And I mean, obviously, Aiden Robinson center is a lock. And then, so let's see if it's another thing with Ashton Larson, where it's like we kept waiting for LSU to click, and he just never really found a spot. So he's talented enough to earn that spot. But yeah, him and Pack will probably be, I think, fighting that out. And Pack, obviously, being a true freshman, that if he kind of ends up taking off after 3 or 4 weeks, as something I could see, then it could be his job over Larson's.
I think the thing for me about Jonah Williams is, so I was there in the fall when they played Lamar, and I remember everybody that I talked to, like Occupy, a few of the coaches, was like Jonah Williams, Jonah Williams, Jonah Williams. And the thing that I actually asked Nolan Kane was, how do you really evaluate, somebody like, Maddox Monzor and Ashton Larson against Jonah Williams, who's not out there? And I think that's the one thing is, I think that Jim Schlossnagle has to decide, yes, Jonah Williams ramping up, as I think he threw the first time in the alumni game. Where like getting him enough at bats to have a fair assessment of Maddox, Larson, Pack, and him. And that's the thing for me is ramping him up and getting him at bats to see if he's going to be your everyday outfielder, because he has the athleticism. But I mean, you played baseball. Last July's, a century ago in terms of bodies. Like, I mean, like I said, you can have this personified vision of Jonah Williams in your head of what he was at the end of last season, and it could be completely different than what it is February 19th. So I think that's the thing, is they really ramp him up, is getting him, the at-bats to see if he is going to be a starter.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's where I do think – that's why I think this Texas schedule kind of helps. And I don't think Texas is worried about dropping any of these. So they're going to rotate guys in and out of this lineup and kind of figure out what works best until they really get in SEC play. And then even then, I think – unless I'm mistaken, because I'm trying to remember this Texas schedule correctly. Yeah, they
play in Houston.
But that was talking about SEC wise. They get Ole Miss week 1 of SEC play at home, who we think they should beat. So that's kind of another one where it's like they could figure things out that weekend. But then it is Auburn, Oklahoma right afterwards. So I think by March 20th is when they need to figure out who their third outfielder is going to, or who their second and third outfielder is going to be.
Yeah, did want to correct myself as I looked up his stats. Anthony Pack is hitting .538. He started all 4 games. He's
Mhm.
7 for 13 with 2 doubles and 2 walks. So, I mean, that's hard to take somebody like that out of the lineup.
Yeah. Especially as a freshman. Yeah, that's one of those where it's like, you expect him to take licks early, and if he's already not, that's a good sign. That's tough to remove that.
Moving about an hour or so east, the Texas A&M Aggies welcome the Penn Quakers to town. You may recall that Penn actually stole a game from A&M. I think it was 3 years ago. It's Penn's first game of the season. When they beat that A&M team, it was Penn's first game since 2019. What do you think happens with Texas A&M this weekend?
I think they score a lot of runs. I think that part will be we can tell. Once again, I know I sound like a broken record, but this is true for the majority of SEC teams. Is the pitching staff was good, not great opening weekend. I want to see more out of Shane Sadeo, especially Friday night. He needs to prove that he's an actual Friday night ace for sure. So I need to kind of see that out of him. But yeah, it's one of those. This should be a sweep. I just want to concentrate on what the pitching staff looks like, because the offense should put up a bunch of runs again.
I will say this: you always kind of worry with teams like Texas A&M what they're going to look like in midweeks from a pitching standpoint, because you kind of feel like it's all hands on deck. I thought they looked solid against A&M Corpus Christi. I think Chris Akopian, getting him back. I want to say I've heard that he's sick. I don't know if it's mono or strep, because I've heard both. But let's say it's actually like a real sickness and not like a tummy bug.
Mm-hmm.
As they kind of work him back. It's not like an injury or anything like that. It's just like a sickness. Seeing where they are with him, and then again, it's the pitching staff. We gave Shane Sadeo a little bit of a pass last week because it was his first start in 2 years, as he was kind of, I would say, B-, C+. Does he kind of come out, have a long outing where he's really, really efficient? Weston Moss is, I think, another one where, that A&M offense gave him 11 runs in the first inning. So I think anybody and their mom could have won that game.
Yeah.
Do we see another quality start from Sims? Darden is another one that I'm really kind of looking forward to. But I think for this A&M team, again, it's all mental for them before they head up to Arlington, 8 days from today. I think that this team in this weekend is going to be as good as they want to be mentally.
Yeah, kind of with you there. I don't know. I do feel like they've gotten over last year, or at least you would think so. Mentally, I think they should be fine by now. I think I honestly, looking back at last year, just felt like everything that could have gone wrong was going wrong. It just felt like one of those seasons. But yeah,
it sucked on opening day, if you remember correctly. Like, it was really cold, and I want to say they had to come back in the 9th or something like that. Like, they were losing the whole game. And then this year, it's like a complete 180.
Yeah, and let's keep the guys healthy this year. Let's keep the guys healthy. But yeah, this is another one. Pitching staff, because the offense should score, and yeah, this is the one that they should sweep this weekend.
As I kind of pull these up, I wanted to bring up the stats on Gavin Grahovic, because he's having, again, just a monster start to the season, like we all kind of knew he would. I think the thing that's been most impressive for me is the first base defense. He's hitting .467 with a home run, 3 walks, 3 doubles. For reference, again, last year he was injured. He hit .227, and he went 0 for 5 on opening day. So it's a complete 180, I think, from him. And I wrote about this in October when I saw this team against TCU. I think this team is as good as Gavin Grahovic is. Like, if he can be this even-keeled, steady Eddie at the top of the order, it kind of makes everybody just take a big, deep breath. Like, it almost feels like a Friday night guy from a bullpen standpoint, where it's like, okay, if our Friday night guy can go 7, everybody kind of breathes. That's kind of how I feel about Gavin Grahovic at the top of the lineup, is that when he takes high-quality at-bats, everybody kind of just breathes a little bit easier in that dugout.
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, we saw how good he was as a freshman. It feels like people kind of forgot that. He was a freshman All-American for a reason. And yeah, he's extremely talented, and it's good to just see him healthy, like biggest and foremost. So Yeah, they should sweep this weekend, and yeah, it should hopefully be fairly easy from what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I should say Penn is kind of middle of the road Ivy. So again, I mean, there's some really good teams in the Ivy, I should say, like Yale and Columbia. Little point of preference that I thought was kind of cool that Penn, a home run leader, and Texas A&M hired Merchant. Wyatt Hensler will be throwing out the first pitch. So I'm really curious to kind of see where his allegiances lie. But again, I think this is another one where it's kind of like Tennessee, where I think that they could go in and steal a game, and you really don't change your opinion of them. Moving on to our final game of the weekend, the Vanderbilt Commodores will play a inferior opponent. They, of all people, deserve it, in the Marist Red Wolves out of the MAAC. I should say this, Nick. I'm not really sure how much longer we're going to be able to call it that, as they had a big announcement as a conference that they're going to be, I guess, changing the name to move away from the MAC to the MAC, as I always like to call them. But again, I think that this is one where if you're Vandy, you run Roll Marist 2 or 3 times, and everybody kind of is like, oh, yeah, this is the Vandy team that we all kind of saw coming.
Yeah, there's not really much we need to talk about for this one. Yeah, Marist is, and it's not only, but they're usually they're kind of lower half of the MAC as well. So this isn't even a great MAC team, and it's going to look a lot like what Vandy did against Eastern Michigan Tuesday and Wednesday, where these games should get fairly ugly. There's not a whole lot to discuss, and probably won't even be much that I'll take out of this weekend either.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, it's not even like it's offense hits. I'm going to take a lot out of it, or if the pitching staff. We know what the pitching staff's going to be. So unless just everything goes haywire, I don't see getting much like new information out of this weekend.
I should say this. I am so looking forward to Vandy hitting like 4 or 5 home runs, and all the Tennessee fans like freaking out, saying it's because like the fence is shorter. I think that's the one thing I'm looking forward to this weekend for this Vandy Marist game. Is just the fans' reaction when they hit home runs.
Oh no, the reaction is going to be more about the schedule, because like Vandy always tries to dog Tennessee for their schedule, and yet they're getting Eastern Michigan and Marist. So yeah, I think that's more of what the talk's going to be. The home runs, yeah, Tennessee. There's no argument that Vandy can have between Tennessee fans about whose home runs and power.
All right, that is all of the games. Before we move on, Nick, who do you think is the most on upset alert this weekend?
Oh, that's a great question. I need to go back through these. From a quick glance, we might pick the same one just from talking about it. Because I'm not going to put Auburn on upset alert just because of that weekend, like just the weekend.
I should say that the tournaments don't count.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to take that out. We'll probably pick the same one then, and it's got to be Ole Miss playing Missouri State. You're talking about an experienced Missouri State team who can absolutely swing it with anybody. So, yeah, I think it's got to be Ole Miss for me.
For me, I think it's Tennessee. And I don't think Kent State wins against Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's bad. I want to clarify that. But Kent State feels like the best opponent outside of Missouri State, who you already kind of took. That's the one thing for me, is I think Kent State's the highest quality opponent. If you're going to make me pick one, I don't think that any of these teams are going to lose this weekend. Tournament time, LSU 3-0. You think they win the tournament?
Yes. But like I said, be careful Sunday against UCF.
Auburn, obviously there's not going to be a winner, as that one's not technically a tournament. It's just 3 teams that happen to be playing. Final predictions on Auburn.
I think they'll figure out a way to go 2-1. I have to assume that this offense will figure it out. I think they definitely dropped Florida State, and they should be at least in the games to win Kansas State, Louisville. So I think they go 2-1. I will take them to go 2-1.
I'll go 1-2, but I think they score 10 runs in one game. That's my little caveat.
Do you have them losing to Kansas State or Louisville? More likely.
Kansas State. And then Florida State, obviously.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. That is all we have time for here on Southern Fried Baseball. This has been our Week 2 preview. We'll be back Monday at 7 at 6 Central. Talk about everything that we saw on the weekend. overreact to a ton of stuff. Once again, this is Jake and Nick. See everybody back here on Monday.